What's up guys, my name is Ace, and yesterday we got the first big update that we're going to be getting this week, and this one was relating to Blackout. And we were expecting this update. They did give us a heads up on this last week, but today I'm going to be going over all of the details of everything that changed within Blackout. There were a couple multiplayer changes, but I'm going to save those and include those with the big multiplayer change that's coming in today's update. So this video is just going to be focusing on the changes to Blackout, and there are a lot of really big changes here. Of course, as always, if you guys want to see the text version of this, I will leave a link to the patch notes down below, but I'm really going to try and show off how everything actually works. So first up, throughout the gameplays, you might notice a couple new guns here. The new guns that are coming to multiplayer in today's later update are already in Blackout. You can find them on the ground, you can find them in stashes. I basically just found them on players' bodies, but I have seen a couple on the ground as well. First, we have the Damon, which is a 3-round burst SMG that has a very, very short burst delay. If you're trying to fire this as fast as possible, it actually almost sounds full auto. And this one is chambered in 45, and it's quite effective at close to somewhat medium ranges, but when you get to those longer ranges, there's just too much recoil within a burst to be effective with it. Plus, the bullet drop is quite high. So it definitely needs to be treated like an SMG, but if you do that, you can melt people pretty darn fast with this gun. In addition to that, we have the SWAT, which is an assault rifle that's chambered in 5.56. This one's got a relatively high fire rate and quite a bit of recoil, but as long as you're tap firing it, I found that it is still somewhat effective at longer ranges, but this is more of a mid-range assault rifle based on my experience with it so far. And with this, it seems like it's a pretty decent middle-of-the-road sort of assault rifle. I don't know if it's necessarily my favorite gun in Blackout, but it is pretty decent. It's absolutely usable, and at least for now, I'm going to be picking it up at any opportunity just to get a better feel for it. In general, with these guns, though, I'm really excited to see how they perform in multiplayer. I can't wait to get into the testing and dive into those stats. I will have gun guides for both of these coming, hopefully later this week. I'll have the first one, and then the next one probably early next week. So those are the new guns. Now let's get into the big armor change. The armor repair system is finally here, and you guys might have already noticed in the gameplay, you can pick up armor plates, and these aren't to be confused with the destroyed armor plates that you get for Ajax's challenge. Those are a completely different item. These are just called armor plates. And with these, you can carry 10 of them. They don't take up an extra inventory slot, so they go in their own inventory slot. You don't need a backpack or anything to carry these. If you guys are looking for them when you open up your inventory, they are on the far left side underneath the ammo, and from there you can drop them for teammates if you want, or you can use them in that menu. Or a much easier way is within the quick equip menu for console at least. You can just scroll over right above where your armor is on the bottom left by where your healing items are. You will see the armor plates there, and you can activate them while on the move, and therefore you can heal your armor up while you're still running. Now, as for finding these armor plates, you will sometimes find them randomly just laying around on the ground, and I've found them actually quite often just laying around. Also, in the ammo stashes, you will often find several of these armor plates. And finally, if you break an enemy's armor and kill them, they will have armor plates within their death stash, so you'll be able to loot it from there. Now, you might also notice in the gameplay, the armor now has several health increments. Now, each one of these little health increments on the health bar of the armor accounts for 100 damage. So the level 1 armor will have 5 of these increments, or 500 durability. Level 2 armor will have 6 of these increments, or 600 health. And finally, level 3 will have 800 of these increments, and therefore 800 health. Each one of those armor plates will heal 1 of these durability increments on that piece of armor. Now, an important thing to note with this is this durability is actually new with this update as well. The armor is much more durable and therefore much more likely to survive a gunfight. Even if you kill an enemy that has a level 1 armor and you only kill him with body shots, it's very likely that his armor will survive that fight, and therefore you can loot that level 1 armor and you can use it in the future. This is especially important when you start killing people with higher level armor, like level 2 or level 3, because now you'll be able to loot that, heal it, and now you have a fresh level 2 or fresh level 3 for yourself. And I really like this change. There's now a much better risk-reward system when it comes to attacking somebody that has a level 3 armor, because before there really wasn't much incentive, because when you kill that level 3 armor player, which is really difficult to do if you have a lower tier armor, by the end of that fight, that armor was essentially gone anyway, so it's not like you're fighting over control of that armor. You just kill that player, and then his armor is pretty much destroyed at that point. Now it's actually worth it to challenge those people with level 3 armor if you're feeling confident enough in the gunfight. Now, I should also note that even though the durability of the armor changed, the amount of damage that it blocks did not change. So level 1 armor will still block 30% of bullet damage. Level 2 will block 40% of bullet damage, and finally, level 3 blocks 50% of bullet damage while it's active. This is something that, in my opinion, should probably change in the future. They said that they wanted to keep that the same for now, and then they'll monitor things. I feel like this leads to a lot of big stalemate situations in longer range gunfights, because if you pop a few shots into an enemy, but he's really far away, he can just take cover, heal his armor up, heal himself up, and then he's back in the fight as if you did nothing to him. And that can definitely get a little bit old, so I feel like more damage should be allowed to pass through the armor, but now you have the ability to heal that armor up. Of course, we need a little bit more playtime with this to really see if that's a change that should be made or not, but personally, that's how I'm feeling based on my initial impression of this. Aside from that though, I really like this change with armor. I feel like you are actually rewarded for being aggressive and seeking fights, especially against people that have a higher tier armor than you, because you can fight them over the armor that they're wearing. The next change they made to Blackout was actually to the map. In general, they made it look more like an autumn season, so you can see the trees have changed color, there's a lot of oranges, the overall lighting has changed as well. But more importantly, they actually made some pretty significant updates to 3 specific areas on the map. This is Factory, Hydro, as well as Nuketown. With Factory, they opened up all of the buildings. Before, there were these 3 buildings here that weren't open, so there was no loot in them, there was no doorway, there was no way to get into them. And they also opened up a bunch of these white shipping containers and added a ton of loot to these areas. Now, in addition to that, they also added these 2 pipes that allows you to go between 3 of the buildings from rooftop to rooftop, which is really nice. It just helps you traverse the factory area a lot more effectively. And these were awesome changes in my opinion. Factory is now a solid place to land, whereas before this update, it was kind of the place that everybody seemed to avoid because the loot was just terrible, and it seemed like it was quite rare to see people landing there. I think that's definitely changed after this update. Next up, we have changes to Nuketown. These changes were quite minor. With this one, they just opened up all of the detached garages that were in Nuketown. There's 4 of them, and previously there was nothing in them. They were completely closed off, no doorways or anything like that. But now they are opened up and there is loot inside there, so there's a little bit more loot on the top side of Nuketown, so maybe that'll balance things out a little bit better between the people that land on the top side and the people that decide to go into the bunker in Nuketown. And finally, we have Hydro, and there were some huge changes to Hydro. This one changed more than anything. With Hydro, on the rooftops of the main buildings, they added these giant electrical units. I don't know exactly what they are. I'll just call them electrical units. And that just adds a lot more cover on top of these buildings. This helps in early game situations especially, because before, there was really no cover, so whoever got to a gun first on the rooftop was pretty much guaranteed to kill any of the other players on there because they had nowhere to go. In addition to that, the bridge between the 2 big buildings, this one now got a rooftop and some walls as well, so there's a little bit more cover going between these 2 buildings. Also, down by where the boat spawns on both sides, you see some more cover there as well, so it's not quite as open. You have some opportunity to get some cover, and you're not quite as exposed when you're down in those areas. And the biggest changes, and I think this was an excellent change, is on both sides above the main buildings, there are now elevators that take you up to the top of the dam. With these elevators, there's a lot more versatility to this area. You can go from the bottom Hydro area up towards the office buildings because oftentimes people will land there and you'd like to get there. And these elevators help a ton with that. So overall, really good changes, and I hope we see similar things throughout the year as well. If they don't completely get rid of a certain area, I love seeing little improvements like this and little changes because it kind of freshens up that whole area and makes me want to land there a lot more often now. Now moving on to some weapon balancing changes within Blackout. For the SCM, they reduced its damage, increased its aim down sight in and out time, and also increased its recoil. And with the Spitfire, they reduced its damage and increased its recoil. Unfortunately, I haven't had any real playtime with these to let you guys know how much of a difference it is, and also without custom games, it's impossible to test this stuff accurately. But just know that those 2 weapons did get a nerf within Blackout only. This doesn't apply to multiplayer. Also within this update, they added a little smoke trail when you're initially wingsuiting into the map when you bail out of the helicopter, and this is supposed to make it so you can see other players a little bit easier as you're dropping in, so it gives you a better indication of how many people are landing near you. But based on my experience so far, I haven't really seen these smoke trails on anyone but myself, so I don't think it really made all that much of a difference. Of course, it's something that could be tweaked in the future though. But finally, this brings us to the last big change that they made, and this was to the audio. More specifically, the footstep audio. It has improved so much, and I noticed this immediately. This was one of my big complaints in solos, is you could hear players from way too great of a distance at way too high of a volume. And in addition to that, it was hard to tell the distance that that player was. A lot of times it seemed like a player was like just around the corner from you or just over a little ridge from you, but it turned out he was actually really far away. With this update, based on my initial impressions, I've got a couple hours of gameplay time in it so far within solos. This has improved significantly. They've lowered your own footstep audio for yourself, so it doesn't lower it for everyone else, but for yourself, your own footsteps aren't going to be quite as loud, which will help you hear your surroundings as you are moving. And also, it's much more accurate as far as detecting where enemy players are just based on their footstep sounds. There's a lot more verticality to it. You can tell if they're just over that ridge or if they're at quite a large distance away. And it seems to be a lot better. It's not as scary to run out in the open because you're not going to have somebody that's super far away from you hearing your footsteps as if you were right next to them. It's still really hard to sneak up on somebody if you're at a full sprint and you don't have dead silence, which is a good thing. I definitely don't think people should suddenly appear out of nowhere unless they have dead silence. But you're not going to get sound horde from an extreme distance away anymore unless that enemy player happens to have the awareness perk on. This, in my opinion, was just as big of a change as the armor change. It has made such a big difference to solos, at least. Less of a difference to quads as well as duos, but for solos, this was one of my major complaints. And so far, based on my experience, the audio has had very, very significant improvements. But with that, that's pretty much it. That's going to cover it for all of the huge Blackout changes that came in yesterday's update. Of course, in today's update, Hijacked will be active, so it will appear on the map. We will also be seeing a new vehicle, the ARAV or ARAV, and with this one, it does have a mounted gun on it, so that one's going to be quite interesting to find out. But overall, really enjoying these changes for the most part. Possibly a couple tweaks to be made to the armor system now that we have the ability to repair our armor. But we'll just have to wait and see how that one plays out. Of course, I'd like to know in the comment section below, what are you guys thinking about all these changes? Which ones do you like? Which ones do you dislike? Just let me know what you guys are thinking down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time. Yeah.